Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gacha kamam maya prishto. Mai sanyasta karmana. Jidvasuru jayam mrityum. Amritat vaya mam bhaja. Gacha kamam maya prishto. Mai sanyasta karmana. Jitva sudurjayam mrityum. Amritat vaya mam bhaja. Gacha kamam maya prishto. Mai sanyasta karmana. Jitva sudurjayam mrityum. Amritat vaya mam bhaja. Gacha, go, kamam, as you wish. Maya, by me. Aprishta, sanctioned. Mai, to me. Sanyasta, completely surrendered. Karmana, with your activities. Jiva, having conquered. Sudurjayam, insurmountable. Mrityum, death. Amritatvaya, for eternal life. Mam, unto me. Bhaja, engaged in devotional service. Translation. Now being sanctioned by me, go as you desire, surrendering all activities to me. Surrendering all your activities to me. Conquering unsurmountable death, worship me for eternal life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The purpose of Sankhya philosophy is stated herein. If one wants real eternal life, he has to engage himself in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. To become free from birth and death is not an easy task. Birth and death are natural to this material body. Sudurjayam means very, very difficult to overcome. So the modern so-called scientists do not have sufficient means to understand the process of victory over birth and death. Therefore, they set aside the question of birth and death and do not consider it. They simply engaged in the problems of the material body, which is transient and sure to end. Actually, human life is meant for conquering the insurmountable process of birth and death. That can be done as here. Mam bhaja, one must engage in the devotional service of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, also the Lord says, Man mana bhava makbhakto, just become my devotee, just worship me. But foolish so-called scholars say that this is not Krishna we must worship, or to whom we must surrender, it is something else. Without Krishna's mercy, therefore, no one can understand the Sankhya philosophy, or any philosophy, which is especially meant to liberation, for liberation. Vedic knowledge confirms that one becomes entangled in this material life because of ignorance, and one can become free from material embarrassment by becoming situated in factual knowledge. Sankhya means the factual knowledge by which one can get out of the material entanglement. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sigurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Siguru Siyuta Parakamalam Sigurun Vaishnavam Sha Sirupam Sagajatan Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaduta Payajana Saitam Krishna Chaitana Devam Sri Radha Krishna. Hey Krishna Karuna Siddhu Dina Vado Jagatpati Gopisha Gopi Kantarada Kantanamasute Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavan Vijaydevi Vancha Kalpatravisa Kipasinnavevacha Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, 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 Hare. So Prabhupada says here that the purpose of life is to become free from birth and death. That is actually philosophy. The word philosophy is made out of two words. One is philos. Philos is in Greek. Philos is friend. Philos. Like mitra in Sanskrit. The same, mitra, friend, philos. And Sophia. Sophia doesn't mean understanding, it means wisdom. Wisdom. And wisdom is not material knowledge, that's not wisdom. Any material knowledge is foolishness. Whatever it is. Whatever you may study, in the ultimate issue, it is foolishness. Unless you can use it for Krishna. Just like in the morning, we tried to open this harmonium, and the combination was mixed up. So then somebody says, it is 0, 0, 0. And I said, yes, that's the material world, and you put a 1 in front of it, it becomes very valuable. So any activity in the material world becomes valuable. Anything. You can take a shower for Krishna. You think for Krishna, this is my body, I got to maintain my body, not for sense gratification, but for Krishna's service. That is service, devotion service. Just like a man may work for a company, and he at the same time is paid when he maintains the car of the company. Right? It's a service. Sometimes they're organized people, they hire somebody to maintain the cars. It's service, and he gets paid for that. So the same way, if we try to make our body strong and fat, like sometimes you see these pictures, in magazines, half naked, 95% naked man stands there like this, muscles like a gorilla, isn't it? Like a gorilla, what a defeat for this man. And he built this enormous muscle. I find it extremely disgusting to even see a gorilla like this, a human gorilla. Horrible, So he invests his energy into there because he's misled. He's misled. He's an illusion. He is not a philosopher, right? Philosopher, he meditates on what is the goal of life. And people in general are not very philosophically minded. And even if somebody is supposed to be a philosopher, like there was this famous philosopher and writer, Jean-Paul Sartre in France. And he was a nihilist. It means, how do you say, somebody who denied God. And so his philosophy was, I met him one time, and he was in Paris. I saw him. I was sitting in a coffee shop. This is before I came to Krishna consciousness. And there he was sitting opposite to me, and he looked like, I didn't know whether he was looking at me or not, because one eye was here, and the other eye like this, you know. The other eyes was there, you know. He looked very ugly person, actually, from a material point of view. And his philosophy is, yes, I agree, life is useless. There's no purpose in life, absolutely no purpose. He said, but the victory of man is if he does that which is useless, with great enthusiasm. What kind of philosophy is that? You do something which is nonsense with great, every dog does that, with great enthusiasm. It is useless, his life is useless, dog's life is useless unless I throw him something, a chapati from the window. Then his spiritual life begins. But otherwise his life is useless. Or the life of a mosquito, Lord Chaitanya explains this. The life of a mosquito. What is a mosquito doing? Simply living, sucking people's blood. That's all. So he said, yes, life is useless. And it was his commentary to this famous book, I mentioned it before, this Myth of Sisyphus. Remember that? Myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was condemned because he saw the supreme god in Greek mythology, which was Zeus, making love with one of his mistresses. There's a similar example. Who laughed when he saw Lord Shiva, his wife sitting on Lord Shiva's lap? Who was that? Somebody, huh? Chitraketu, that's right. And he fell from his position. And so in the same way, he laughed when he saw the supreme couple in loving embrace, and he laughed, and she cursed him. He said, for that, I curse you. To live in a land, on an island, where there's one big boulder and a big hill, and I curse you that for the rest of your life you have to roll this ball, this big boulder, up to the top. And immediately you try to hold it, you can't, because some magical force pulls it down and rolls down again. And your mindset is like that you say, I have to do that, I have to do that. And again and again and again and again, he does that. You see, and his conclusion was he's doing this, what he obviously knows is useless, with great enthusiasm. That was his philosophy. This is not a good philosophy. Actually, he didn't understand the myth of Sisyphus. The real story behind it is that is our life. We are actually condemned. We all, to start small and get bigger and bigger, and then we roll this God project that we have. Everybody has a God project, up the hill with great pain, and when it reaches the hill, we die. And again we wake up, and again we have a God project, and again we roll this boulder on top of the hill, and when it's reaching the top, I die. And again, I can do this a couple of times. I know you enjoy it. Again, this is actually birth, old age, disease, and death, the repetition of birth and death in this drama. That's the deeper meaning of it. But he misunderstood it completely because his brain, he's not a philosopher. You know, he may be a friend of something, of material nature, of high thinking, but actually he's not, he doesn't have Sophia, wisdom. That's the point. It's not wise to, what he suggested there, to bear the drudgery of material life with great enthusiasm and do that which is useless, which has no purpose, with great enthusiasm. That's not philosophy. Life has a purpose, and our activities are purposeful. And we do that which is, we are supposed to do that which is purposeful, namely devotional service with utsaha. Is it utsaha? Great enthusiasm. There it is. So the idea of utsaha is there, right? Enthusiasm, he got that right, but not doing something useless with great enthusiasm. Rather, doing something which is useful with great enthusiasm, and that's philosophy. That's wisdom. That's actually philosophy. Everything else is not philosophy. Everything else is foolosophy. It's foolosophy. It's the philosophy of fools. And so in the material world, our main, our main drive is, what is our main drive? To run away from Krishna. Everybody in the material world is running away from Krishna. Deeper and deeper into the material world. And when you run away from Krishna, Krishna is here now, right? And I run away from Krishna into the world, and I see so many things. This and that, and this beautiful this, and this wonderful this, and that, and I go deeper into it, into the material world. My godbrother Mangalananda, who wrote many wonderful philosophical songs, he sang in one song, sex and money is rattling, rattle, when you put something in a box and it rattles, He said, money and sex is rattling in my brain, I cannot remember Govinda's name. That's very true. Sex and money is rattling in my brain, I cannot remember Govinda's name. That's the situation. Because we are running away from Krishna, and therefore we are encountering the material world with so many so-called solutions. So-called solution. And one solution after the other will fail when we die. Just like one of my relatives wrote me a message. She was repairing her, refurbishing her apartment. And in the end, she got the double-glazed windows, double-glazed. And she said, now that my house or my apartment is finished with double glazing, I can die in peace. I was astounded. She reached the goal of life, the double glazing in her flat. And so you don't know whether you should laugh or cry. You don't know whether you should laugh. And particularly, I try to get through to this person. It's impossible. Very nice, very open, but not really open. She may be open, but not open-minded, to hear that what is she doing? She's running away from Krishna. And she's encountering, she just made up her mind, I can die in peace. My God, she's going to wake up, when she dies. How foolishly she wasted Krishna's money. And so, in the material world, we're encountering so many problems. Now, if we turn around towards Krishna and focus on Krishna, and on Krishna, and on Krishna, and on Krishna, then we don't see the material world. The problems of the material world exist only because we are looking at the material world. When we change our focus from here to there, then Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hayandaka. Krishna is like sunshine, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there's sunshine, there's no question of darkness. Very simple, So the thing is that in material life, our focus is wrong. We're focusing on Maya, on the material world, instead of focusing on Krishna. And that's not easy. I can tell you out of my own experience. My mother, this is now, when I was 4 years old, that means 71 years back, she gave me the golden formula, the best thing I've heard up to then. And what was this golden formula? This golden formula is so perfect that if you follow this, you become very quickly Krishna conscious. Very simple. And that golden formula is this. First, God, then God, and then God. So 3 times. So when you chant, first, not this and that and computer and looking here and there and I have to go and fight. No, nothing. First God, and then God. It's just as an example, right? In devotional service, first God, first God, first God. Most important thing. Then the others, the others, the others. Number two, the others. And then at the end, at the very end, at the very, very, very end, yourself and myself. Now, if I would have followed this formula from her, taking it from her lips, because she was my first Shiksha guru, if I would have taken this wise formula, right, seriously, and would always practice it from the early morning when I start chanting up to the evening, right, I would be in much better shape. I would be in much better shape spiritually. And every one of us would. It's such a great formula. Because then the next formula I learned from Satchidananda Swami, but first this formula is the first step. First God, then God, then God. Then the others, and the others, and the others. Then yourself. The next step is, we do our best in this way. Then Krishna does the rest. Whatever has to be done is actually done by Krishna. We don't have to worry. He said, just fix your mind. I love that verse in Bhagavad Gita. Machita sarva durgani. It's such a great, in 2 lines. Machita, if you direct your consciousness towards me. Right? Sarva durgani, all difficulties that come from Durga. All difficulties, what is Ariyatma, Aridevika, Aribodhika, all 3 sufferings. Mat prasadam, by my mercy. What is this movement? If you go number 2 and then you pull, it goes down the drain. All difficulties, right? Go down the drain. You pull the string. That's all, automatically. And so it's fascinatingly easy, actually. It's very these ideas are very simple ideas, but we are so complicated, you know. Prabhupada said spiritual life is simple for the simple and complicated for the crooked, he said. It's very simple. And so these are very simple things, and that's exactly what he says here, surrendering all activities. To me, conquering unsurmountable death, it's not easy because we are caught so strongly in material existence. You know, everybody, including myself, we are so strongly caught up by habit, by material habit. Prabhupada he said, it's just like trying to straighten the tail of a dog. If you see a tail of a dog, a street dog, it goes like this. If you try to straighten it, make it straight, it goes back again, right? Automatically, it goes back. We are veering towards our old habits all the time. That is a problem. And it's a problem I encounter in my life and you encounter in your life. That Maya is always, you know, if you want to chant, Maya, hello, come over here. And this is there, and that is there, and your friend is there, and so many things. And I mean, especially when you chant, all hell breaks out in your head, right? All hell breaks out in your head as soon as you start chanting. You agree with that? Huh? That's the fact. You see, this tendency to veer outside is very difficult to overcome. I remember when we were young children, we used to go to the how do you call the enjoyment grounds, where people enjoy, where there's different kinds of horse riding and on wooden horses and merry-go-rounds and all these things. And there was one thing, that there was a big, how do you say, there was a disc, a huge disc, maybe 10 meters across, and it was like this. There's a point in the middle, like a little higher. And so we all would go on this disc, something like 20 people, and then the disc started spinning, you know? It started spinning faster and faster, and everybody tried to hold on to the center, and went very fast. Ultimately, everybody was thrown into the garbage can of material existence. And that's really a great example. You know, that's what it is. The Fliehkraft, how do you call it? That particular power that drags you outside. You know, some car accident, somebody by the power of the car, he flies in the sky. You know, Fliehkraft. You know, they call it in Germany. That power is very difficult to overcome. You know, that's why Krishna says, Daivi Shagunamami. Remember this disc. We are all sitting on this disc now. And then we hear, Daivi Esha Gunamami Mamaya Raja. This material world is very difficult to overcome, because it is my... But one who surrenders unto me, one who is able to sing Hare Krishna, gradually, he is curing himself. He's being cured by association. That is the thing, by association. By association with Krishna, in form of chanting, in form of kirtan, in form of devotional service, in association with devotees, and so many things, how we can connect with Krishna. There's, in Krishna consciousness, there are deities there are murtis there, there's japa there, there's prasadam there. Imagine, a life without prasadam. I mean, no wonder that the churches are empty, because there is no prasadam. You know what I mean? In Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada's temples were full in the beginning with thousands of people because of the prasadam. Everybody, even Steve Jobs, who invented the Apple computer, came told in this lecture in Stanford University that he went miles and miles to eat the prasadam in the temple. So there's prasadam there. And then we have other attractions. What are the other attractions? There's Govardhan, there's Radhakunda, there's Sevakund, there is Mount Kailash, there is, what else is there? Ganga. The Ganga is there, the Yamuna is there, Vrindavan is there, Mayapur is there, and so many holy places we can go to. Unlimited. Now, in a couple of days, we go to a holy place where Lord Nishingadev is living, isn't it? That's another thing. I mean, we have so many things right on our doorsteps. Such a rich life. Worship of Tulsi Devi, japa, I mean, endless prayers, so many beautiful prayers. It's such a rich tradition that somehow or other we stumbled into, right? We didn't know where we were going. Somehow or other we ended up in the Hare Krishna movement by some force, by some karma. No doubt about it. We ended up here. And now, since we gathered here in this auspicious situation, being able to sit in front of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, and Lord Nishingadev, and Lord Nityananda, and Lord Chaitanya, and Tulsi, and for Prabhupada, of course, if we're in this fortunate position, we should just be philosophically, see things philosophically, with wisdom, with wisdom, see things philosophically. What I'm doing, is this philosophically correct? Or is it not correct? And we find ourselves so many things doing which are not philosophically correct in the beginning. It's part of our journey. It's part of our journey. There are two ways to go. One thing is to immediately accept and do it. And that's hard because we are like dogs whose tail is curled, right? The tendency is to always being attracted again by Maya. You're on this disc and it turns around and only somebody is completely fixed in Krishna consciousness. He is not free from these forces of Maya, which are actually created by Krishna. They're actually created by Krishna. They come to us to encourage us, not encourage us directly, to show us that we're going nowhere in material existence, as long as we don't have to take some medicine, and the medicine is association. The medicine is association, just like when we take an iron rod, even if in winter we pick up an iron rod in Russia. Don't do this in Russia. I've done that. No, I've not done that. Don't do that in 50 minus. If you touch a car, when I came to Russia first time, I wanted to open the doors. Two people hold my hand back there. Don't do that. Don't do that. I said, why? He said, your hand will immediately freeze. You cannot take it off. If you do so, all your flesh is on the car. On the car. Because it's frozen. If you with force remove, and you don't even feel the pain in the beginning, He said, if 3 people, 4 people holding you, it's very cold, to the car. And they call the police or the fire department, and they come with a torch, this blowtorch, and heating up the surrounding, till finally you can let the hand go. They saved your life, you know. Otherwise, your hand is right there. What you have here is just bones. You know, it's so cold. So don't touch an iron rod or anything iron in Russia in 40 minus. You know, I've been in 40 minus, you know. Quite enjoyable, actually. If you have the proper dress. If you ever, I mean, basically speaking, only the eyes are sticking out, like this, you know. The rest is just completely covered, you know. And then if you can go, it's like a space suit. It's like with a space suit, you can go into Russia in 40 minus, but otherwise not. You know, you won't survive 10 minutes. You know, it will freeze you to the bone. And you just fall asleep. That's what people do. They fall asleep in the car, they wake up, next morning they're dead. You know, they're ice, practically speaking. And so, if you take that same rod now and put it into fire, no matter how cold, no matter how far away from heat, this is the thing. The iron in Russia is as far away from heat as possible. 40 minus, 50 minus. Never where we are, how frozen we are in the material existence. If we hold this iron into this fire and keep holding it, day after day in Krishna consciousness. Every day may not be very glorious, it's in some way glorious. Like Prabhupada said, every living being, every human being is a mixture of glory and fault. That's the normal state we all come in. But if you keep on going in this process, day after day, and eat prasadam, and hear the sound vibration, and then we know it is 100% certain, 100%, not 99%, it is 100% certain that we will go back to the spiritual world, 100%. You know, even if somebody is most fallen. There was one devotee, he fell very heavily from his position as a devotee, so much so that he went back to his old ways, which was, in this case, that he was worshipping the devil. Satanist, he was a Satanist. And then somehow or other he went through big anxieties and frustrations and depressions and came to Krishna consciousness. So then when he fell, he became bewildered with the opposite sex. I think in this way, even with the same sex, he became bewildered. And he fell deep and he went back to his roots, namely devil worship. Right? As deep as you get. And then when he died of AIDS, AIDS is the punishment in this business, then 4 godbrothers went, and one lady went to him to see him die and help him. And they chanted for him, put a tulsi mala around his neck and tilak on his forehead. So if it's the moment he died, he said, Prabhupada, you have come. And then he died. You see, isn't that amazing? Prabhupada, you have come, you know. So Prabhupada, he is not letting us go. You know? He wants us to go back to the spiritual world. And anybody who is coming to this movement in some way or another, and who sits in this temple and eats prasadam, it may not always be perfect what we do, and sometimes, yes, we go on the internet, sometimes it's that you tell me, you know, these are the things. But gradually, we are advancing in our Krishna consciousness, becoming more focused and focused and focused, till ultimately we can practice God first, then God, then God, then the others, then the others, then the others, and then myself. That's a very high level that my mother proposed to me actually there. And she was practicing a good bit of that. So much so that I desire that I will meet her again. Because she was a very good, pious, very pious woman. And that she is ending in the spiritual world, or is already in the spiritual world. So this is it's very high level. First God, then God, then God. When you chant, think about that, you know. It helps to put it on your computer, a little sticker, you know. First God, then God, then God. Everywhere where you do something, you know, to remember this formula. First God, then God, then God. And then the conclusion of that is, as Satchidananda Swami put it in such a nice shloka, if we do our best, Krishna does the rest. That's a fact. And even in Bible, Jesus said, turn to God, the rest will be given to you. See, in one sentence, turn to God, the rest will be given to you. Wonderful. Such a highly perfect formula he gives there, which is universally true. Whether you're Christian or whether you're Muslim or whether you're Jew, it doesn't matter. You turn to God, the rest will be given to you 100%. And you see that even in worldly religions, we may say, you always find that there are some people who are extraordinary, who use this formula, God first. There's one person, what is his name? Saint Joseph of Bernardino. Bernardino is a city, small city in Italy. And this Saint Joseph of Bernardino, he was so pious that when you go into the church, you see there, when you try to pick an apple, you know, on a long stick there's a hook, you know. And there's so many in the church, something like 10 or 20. Because as soon as he spoke the word Jesus, he would lift up from the ground and was on the ceiling. He was hovering on the ceiling. It has been witnessed by more than 300 people. So they had to pull him down, you know, to keep him, just sit to give continuous lecture. Had to pull him down. He was so fired up. You know, as soon as the word Jesus came into his mind, he just levitated all the way to the ceiling and couldn't come down. You know, he was in ecstasy. He doesn't want to, I'm fine. Come down, finish your lecture. And so, you see, and there are so many, you find great sages and great mystics and great saints in every tradition. It's not because of the tradition. It is in spite of the tradition, because the tradition may be very screwed up, you know. Maybe like St. Francis from Assisi was a greatly saintly person, no doubt about it. So why was he saintly? The church was in such a mess at that time. You know, and because he took this serious, first God, the formula. Krishna then, according he surrenders unto me, I reveal myself. It doesn't matter in what tradition. So an ultimate issue, it doesn't even matter what tradition you're in. Some traditions are, of course, more favorable because we have so much understanding how to systematically develop love of God. But from every position, one can actually rise by the mercy of Krishna. By Krishna's mercy. And so there must be saints in every tradition to enthuse people. They are empowered to be saintly to enthuse people, you know, to go forward on this path. And so, in the same way, our business is really to enthuse devotees, you know, in Krishna consciousness. That's what Prabhupada wanted his disciple to do. He said that, please encourage the devotees. And so, this we all have to do. You have to encourage other devotees, encourage each other. You can go on the internet. There's one Russian boy, a simple boy who has practically speaking no education, but one thing he knows, Bhagavad Gita. And he is on what is it called, Instagram. He has more than 3,000 Russian followers. He's 18 years old, 3,000, and every evening, religiously at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, he's on Instagram, and everybody is there waiting for another verse from Bhagavad Gita he's talking about. That guy is fired up. You know, it's unbelievable. He's so fired up, you know. And we fall asleep sometimes in class, right? I sent my son yesterday a picture, and somebody photographed me in the class. I was sleeping, right? And I wrote him, class was so boring. Class was so less inspiring. I fell asleep. And he said, he wrote back today in the morning, thank you for reminding me because I gave class today in Los Angeles Temple. Thank you for reprimanding me because I gave class today in Los Angeles Temple, because sometimes we fall asleep. And Prabhupada himself, there was a lecture, my wife saw that Prabhupada was lecturing on some subject, and somehow there was a spell, all the devotees fell asleep. And so Prabhupada said, in the material world, everybody is asleep. He was lecturing, he read it in the verse. He looked up, he said, that is a fact. And then he looked at Hari Sori and smiled. I need only to say one word. Sex! Everybody woke up immediately. Everybody woke up, you see. Hare Krishna. So I thank you very much. Our time is up. Do we have any questions? So this is my fourth last lecture. There's one on Sunday. Monday. And Tuesday. Monday. And Monday. And Tuesday. I do both, since I'm leaving, And we have need to have some more kirtan. Does anybody have a question? So now the formula, don't forget this formula. It's really good. First God. And if you have a problem with I put it in front of myself, because I need that. I need to be reminded. First God, then God, then God. Particularly when chanting japa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Come on. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Come on in. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Hare Ram, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bol. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, go Premananda Hari.